So, today we're going to talk about doing research. There's three main words you need to understand about gold washing or gold mining. Placer deposits, which is hard ore, or places where um, silicon and such comes through rock deposits with gold in it. You have alluvial. Alluvial deposits is basically where gold has been moved by basic erosion, wind, rain. It is broken loose and fallen, but has not been actively moved by a water movement such as a steady river, spring, creek, or whatever. Then you have alluvial. Alluvial mean aqua, which is water, and alluvial gold is mainly what most gold washers go after. If you are digging in dry areas that is not a stream wash or runoff area, river and so on, you, by law, at least in Germany, you are mining. Mining is a total different animal from gold washing because you're digging in the ground where no water is at, moving it to your sluice or your high banker, and then dumping it in. Case in point, if, say, I'm parked here, say I come down and I'm digging along this cliff face, because I can tell you this is a fairly steep cliff face right here. If I'm digging along that cliff face in that rock, then I am mining. Even though it's next to here and it's being eroded out by the river, that rock has not been moved by the river. Even during high times, it's not been washed out. That is in place rock. Alluvial deposits, for a better term. You go digging in that, you are mining. Now, anything that's gotten washed out of that ridge bed and now is down here being moved by the water, now if you're digging in this area, you are now washing gold because you're dealing with alluvial gold, or gold that has been moved from one point to another by active water source. So just be careful when you're doing this. I know a lot of people, they do it. They go down, they dig into the high banking, this, that, and the other, and you can run into issues with the water departments where they're saying that you're causing excessive or advanced erosion, all sorts of different problems. If you're not digging where the gold has already been moved by an active water source, for safety's sake, consider it alluvial gold, and if you're digging alluvial gold, you're mining. Just be aware of that. Check your country, region, state laws, and so on. They do differ, but that's just a basic general term. All right? So if you want to be washing gold, your best bet is always deal with alluvial gold, which is material that has been moved already by an active water source. So now, simply by moving from this cliff face here down to this, where during high water it's been washed, and now all of it's down here. Now I'm doing alluvial gold washing. All right. There's areas like this that you want to look for. This right here, because I've been there, I went and checked it out. This is actually granite and bedrock. It gets all torn up all through here. All of that comes down out of France and out of Switzerland, and then it starts building these gravel and sand piles down through here. You got to be careful about this. France has different laws than Germany, and if you're digging along here, you're under German law, but if you move across that line and the water police come by, they may stop you and you could be in violation. So always check your areas, your GPS coordinates, and so on to know exactly where you're working if you're in an area like this where the river crosses one or more country borders. So that's basically the difference between eluvial and alluvial. We're not going to get into placer. We're not going to get into hardcore or hard rock mining. We're not going to get into ore deposits, anything like that. It has nothing to do with our hobby, and it's best if you just avoid it. Next, how do I know where to find? How do I know that there's gold here? First is geology. If you study the geology of Europe, and if I'm like in Germany, I can track where you had not one but two. Most people think you had one ice age, but you really had two. There were two ice ages that proceeded across Germany, and the glaciers moved all that sedimentary rock and everything down southward and made alluvial deposits that eventually get washed out and made eluvial deposits that eventually get washed out by the river and so on and get turned into alluvial deposits. The second is runoff and feeder streams from the various countries coming out of the Alps and so on, depending on which river, streams, or area that you're working in. A good way to find an area to start with is look at old coins. Now here, these are German old Roman coins and early Germanic coins. A lot of these, the gold, it was a status symbol to say that your region or your area had gold. So they would mint the region of where the gold was collected. So like here, Bavaria. So we know within the Bavarian region of the Rhine, because this is Rhine gold, they were panning gold out of the Rhine. Okay, here, this is Hessen. This is from the Hessen area, and again you see it's marked Rhine gold. And you can go through, and this will help you narrow down areas within your region that may make it easier to find that. Alright? Another thing to understand, the original Rhine, as you see it here, this is an early pre-1870 depiction of the Rhine. It was a massive series of smaller streams, small rivers, and floodplains, bogs and marshes. It wasn't one river like we know it today. Around the 1870s, they started dredging and straightening the Rhine. And so the gold that you find on the main Rhine today is really not what we would consider the old glacial till gold from the alluvial deposits being turned and vented into alluvial deposits, but it's more newer gold that's in the last, since the 1870s, has been washed down out of the Alps and so on and into the riverways. If you look at a modern map on Google Maps or whatever, you'll see right here, this is part of the original Rhine floodplain. I can tell that because all the streams here are marked Alto Rhine. Alright, that means all of these streams running off of here could be gold bearing. You might have to dig a little deeper, a meter or so down, but in most cases, unless these have been recently put in, as in man-made for drainage, okay, then like here, this is the sand canal, or the sand Cahil, or Cahile. Sand. That means this is sand deposits. So if I got up into here, I would probably find gold in those sands. The one tricky part about working the old Rhine is a lot of the old Rhine areas are now nature protected zones. So always check, see here, that green is a nature protected zone. However, this area down here is not. So that's another way to search out the older gold, and this works on any rivers. All you have to do is do the research. I cannot stress enough how people always go on, where is the gold, where is the gold? And we as gold washers may put months or years into researching areas before we even go set foot on it to pan test it. I went out the other day, 4 different sites, spent the whole day moving around between 4 sites I had researched, and only one of them had any gold, and really, in my opinion, did not have enough in the test pans to warrant me actually digging in those areas. So even by knowing how to research and what to look for, every place that you go to is not going to have gold, and or it's going to be too difficult to get to. It could be a protected area. Somebody may have put a fence up as private property. Any number of things. I went up onto the Schwarze, and the place that I used to go to there had a sign out that said no gold washing. I went and talked to the owner who had given me permission before, and he says, I just can't let anybody do it because people had been coming over, tearing down his fence, upsetting his livestock. They had been building, he had found a smoldering fire left unattended from over the weekend. He came up on a Monday morning and saw smoke and went up, and there was still a fire smoldering. They had built the fire on the ground onto his farming ground. People were digging holes and not refilling them, which was causing problems with the fishing club. And he said, I just can't, I can't do it. So I have permission to go there, but under strict orders that I can no longer take anyone there or mention where it is, which is really bad because it was a really nice place. I like to take people to teach them the basics of gold washing. I knew they would find something, but they had to work for it. So that's the basics on that. Let's move on into the other parts of using the maps and the different ways between topographical overlay, satellite maps, Google Earth, Google Maps, and so on how to further narrow down where you want to possibly go look. We are going to cover the second part of research. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and some recent questions up on some of the gold forums has brought this back to mind. I'm going somewhere for vacation. Is there gold there? I've moved to this area. Is there gold here? Is there gold in my area? Blah, 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 blah. The usual response you're going to get on the gold forums is research, or the area is known for gold, check it. You got to understand, people are not being greedy. They're not being mean or nasty. Most gold panners put a lot of time, effort, research, and money into going to locations, checking them out, and seeing if there's anything there. And a lot of them will tell you, unless you do your research, there's a good 90% chance that you're not going to find anything. With your research, there's typically a 50 to 75% chance. And I'm going to show you, I covered this stuff in my class video 001 research that explains gold deposits, how it's developed, how to research it from historical standards. This one we are going to cover on how to research it using the modern computer. Amazing. I have people that are like, is there gold in my area? And 5 or 10 minutes later I get back with them and say, check this area, or this area. Oh, you've been there? No, I've never been there. But I will just about guarantee you there's a 90% or better chance you're going to find gold there. The reason is a little bit of geology is required to understand this. And if you're going to be gold washing or searching for semi-precious gemstones or whatever, you need your geology. Now, a long time back in years before, during the mammoth and the woolly mammoth and woolly rhinoceros and so on, a good majority or chunk of Germany was covered in an ice sheet and glaciers. These glaciers tilled everything up and pushed a lot of stuff, including gold-bearing material, down all the way down into the Bayern, Bavaria region. This leveled off a lot of stuff. If you look in some areas, you'll find the topographical areas are no more than 500 meters high. Anything 400 meters or lower, if you're seeing a continual slant on this, means that this was typically glacial till. It's got worn down and then later the rivers and streams cut through it. It's not as old as, say, the mountains in France or Austria or Czech and Poland, that they got the glaciers, but it was a sturdier material basically. So we're looking at two different types of gold. Gold that either got transported from gold-bearing material from the north, or gold that has since been cut from the remaining rock and or transported in from the surrounding countries. The easy way to do this, we can go to Germany, and the first thing I want to look at, if I'm wanting to find a particular area, let's say we'll go down to Stuttgart. Bam. Okay, I'm in Stuttgart. Let's say I live in Stuttgart and I want to find out if there's any gold in the area. A good way to do this is in Google Maps, go to terrain. You just push your mouse over there and go to terrain. And you'll see all these mountain ranges and stuff. Alright? And what I am looking for is lots of feeder streams going into a major stream, like here. See how deep that stream is cut? We're looking at over 400 meters in depth. Some of this will get to 500 or 600. But I've got all these streams that are feeding into the Neckar. And the Neckar then feeds into I forget what the Fils. So if I'm looking at these two rivers feeding in, this area down here might be good. You see the depth, the distance that's been dug in. If I get away from all this man-made stuff, green areas are typical national parks or protected zones on Google Map. Stay away from them. But you'll see here, I've got this area has been washed out, and you see these smaller streams coming down. So let's take a look right here. City. I don't want in the middle of a city. I've got a lot of streams coming through. All of these will feed in. I've got a lot of height dimensions. So this is, you'll notice the tops are always around 400 meters. That means this is glacial till. It's got pushed over by glaciers normally. And the streams have cut through here. So if I go down to this area where I have all these streams coming in, and then I go to my satellite view. I can look at these. Now we know the Bombach is the major stream. So that's that one. This looks like it may be good here. And we've got some roads which may give us access to it. A lot of foliage. Now we can look at the terrain map, and we know we've got dig in here. This is a flat plain that's got washed out, so this is a flood plain. This is all a nature protected zone, so you might as well just stay away from that. The Noger coming in. We want to stay away from this floodplain. Everything's going to till out, and this is typically farming and stuff now. But I would go through and look for sandbars, bends in the river, things that would denote possible locations where alluvial gold would be deposited. Like coming out from here down into here, this area here. Any of this stream running through here, lots of curves, especially this back bend. This back bend here. So this is how I'm switching between the default, the terrain, and satellite. And this is how I come up and I look at areas to determine if it's viable where I want to go. Alright? The next thing we're going to look at is we're going to use the same thing for, because I saw someone post on the Ulm area asking if there was anything in Ulm. Well, so let's say you live in the Ulm area and you want to know if there's gold, possible gold deposits. We'll use the same procedure. We go to our terrain map. Now here, this is a lot of floodplain out. So this is the Iller and so on is coming from the south and filling in. So we know that there's gold in the Iller. We know that there's gold in the Neckar and I forget what the Danube. We know that there's gold in there. But what we're looking for is places where people have not gone, new places. So I see here we have a lot of deep dig in. Here, see how all of that's been dug in. All of those streams would bring gold down to here. So your gold coming into the Danube is out of the south and from all these feeders from this mountain range right here. And you use the same principle once you've located a place where you want to look. Let's say I want to see where this is meeting in here. Nature areas, avoid. Looks like we got a crossing there. So then we're going to go to our area map, look down, and look at that right there. And I just follow down and look for sandbars, shallow areas and zones where stuff has been built up. Now, the other thing you can do is I can take this. See, I take, where was that bridge? Here. Copy that and go to Google Earth. Google Earth. notice the picture resolution is much better. Now I can get a much better idea. You can see a sandbar here. The water flow is going to bank off, but you see it curls. So I've got a sand buildup on this side. This is basically going to be a walkway or maybe a small dam, which means I could have fallout on either side of this, but be careful digging more than 50 meters next to a man-made structure. They don't like that. It causes additional erosion. But I've got a road here. I could easily get off the road. I'm not seeing any any road blockers. Here I've got a road that comes off of here. So I could actually get right there. Okay. The last thing we're going to look at is Google Earth time. Now at this point what we're going to do is let's look at the Rhine here, and then all we do is we go to our terrain, and you see again you can follow that terrain features and find your squeeze points to where the gold is going to build up. Now we're going to look at another feature that I use, which is only in Google Earth Pro. We know that gold comes out of France and out of Switzerland. So a lot of places that people like to, because it flows through most of Germany, is they like to do the Rhine. This is a good example of using the terrain feature. You see we've got mountains. This is a floodplain. Originally the Rhine until the late 17 to early 1800s was weavy. This was a big floodplain. And then they straightened the river. So you can actually find locations where the Rhine diverges and you can still see it sweeping, but it like here. But the main river, like this is part of the Old Rhine here. There's a section. These are good places to look also, but they've straightened it and made it for commerce. Well, we can tell here this section is part of the old river. We don't see a lot of the weaving and so on, so this is more down to the point. Go right here. Now historically this was a bridge that crossed between the two that's been closed off. That's why it's called Zollstrasse. And you can see here, this is now a swimming area. You can literally, this is so shallow during the summer you can walk across it into France. So you have the river flooding into here, and this old structure is acting like a riffle and catching all the gold and stuff behind here. Now what I can do with this is I can take that and go into my Google Earth. Google Earth Pro to be exact. And there we are. Stay away from this area. It's fenced. They do not like trespassers. The neat thing about the Google Earth Pro is I've got a time zone here. I can bring this up, and I can take that all the way back to about 1985. The pictures, of course, are not high resolution, but it can give me an idea. So I know that's been here, and this section has been unchanged basically since 1985. I move up within 2007, I get better. And you can see here, during low water, I have another bank here that was not showing on the original. So by going here during low tide, I'm opening up additional area I can work. But you'll notice this bank is still here and this is still here. This has been here for a while. Actually, this is digging down into this area right here. Some of this, when the river's really low, you're on base bedrock. It's got big little holes cut into it from the water, and you can use your siphon and pump these out and find deposits. They're like giant riffle holes, if you will. And as I move up, you see here high water that's disappeared. And it looks like most of this is really high water. You can see, but now you can see that riffling action and which way the water flows. Again, you do not want to go into France without permits, but that means that shows all of that action right there. And that tells you, and you can dig along here because this is not a active road, so you could actually dig on this other side right here. And that's during low water. And so this is the thing I like about Google Earth. The other thing that I like about it is it can tell you things that is no longer visibly obvious. This is an area on the Rhine, further north. You see here. And if we look at this, this shows us that it's a marina that flows into the river. Lots of sandbanks, which would look nice. We could come down here and do our stuff. We got a camping place here, and we've got this little inlet that looks basically closed off. You see there. It's been silted in. So you think this is probably just runoff, there's nothing there. If we take this and we go to Google Earth Pro though, we discover something about that area that's not obvious. So here we have our area. And so let's start our little journey back. You see here, this is the current. We got a lot of runoff along this creek bed here. We've got an inlet here. This is built up. However, this is a camping area, so you would not want to go over here. Back on this area would probably be useful. I'd be careful because that looks like wet sand. That could be essentially quicksand on the river. You got to be careful with that stuff. But as we go back, you see we're seeing sandbars here. Well, that, if this was just a natural inflow, that shouldn't be there. That tells us something was going on in here. This is the area. It's wind, it's winter. Okay, that's not dry sand. That's just, there was a heavy wind when that was getting done. And now you see we start seeing, as we go further back in time, we start seeing a defined. See that flushing out? If this was just a flood zone, we wouldn't be having that. Something was pushing that sand out. And you see here, we got an old piece of equipment that's now showing. And now you see why. This area was dredged for sand. That means that they were digging about 25 meters down. They were dredging it out, and these points that we see that was coming off were barge settings to where they were filling the stuff right here, and for the pumps. really can't tell much in here from this. But we can see basically we don't see any boats or anything in that area. So we know at around 1985 nothing was going on. And then by 2001 they were dredging this area. See how much wider open this is? That means all of this has been filled in from the river and from the sand coming out of here. You see that? So this tells us at this point that this right here, all of this has been carried in by the river and washed out from here from the flooding. And I can just about guarantee you're going to find gold all along here. The amount and quantity will depend on how deep they dug into here. But I definitely would be coming out and checking this area. There are no roads out this way. This is the old road. We can see where that is. So you might still gain access to there to bring you out to here. You can do a screenshot. So this is what I use Google Earth for. Google Earth Pro is with this time lapse, it can give me a good idea not of just what is there currently, but what may have been going on in the past that's created that structure. And I hope this is of use and help. Good panning.